Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of In the Hot Seat. I apologize for the slight delay starting this afternoon, but I'm so happy to be in the hot seat with some of the members of the Montserrat National Youth Parliament. So good afternoon, guys. How are you guys feeling?
Good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Awesome. So we're just going to go around the room and just introduce yourself. So I want each of you to basically introduce yourself to the audience and also tell us your role as a member of the National Youth Parliament. Okay, so starting with you, St. Luc LeBlanc.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Saint Luc Leblanc. I am the Premier of the National Youth Parliament and the Minister of Finance and Economic Management within the Youth Parliament.
Awesome. And then next, Kayla, if you can just introduce yourself to the audience and tell us your role within the Youth Parliament, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am the Youth Minister of Education, Health, Youth Affairs, and Sports.
Fantastic. And then over to you, Jacinta. Can you just introduce yourself, please?
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Jacinta Ryan, and I am the clerk of the Montserrat National Youth Parliament.
Fantastic. And then over to you, Keanu.
Yes, good afternoon and greetings to our viewers. My name is Keanu Kernan, Leader of the Opposition and the Shadow Minister of Finance within the Montserrat National Youth Parliament 2024.
Awesome. And last but certainly not least, Michaela, if you can just introduce yourself there to the audience for me.
Hi, my name is Michaela Cole, and I'm the Youth Deputy Premier and Minister of Communication, Works,
Awesome.
Energy, and Labour.
So thank you so much, guys, for sitting down with me this afternoon. I hope that you guys are not nervous because apparently I asked hard questions, but hopefully you're prepared for our conversation this afternoon. Before we jump into it, on the 21st of February, you guys were sworn in as the members of the National Youth Parliament. So I just want to go around the room again and find out from each of you why it was so important for you to be a part of the Youth Parliament and how it feels to have been sworn in as a member. So starting with you again, St. Luc.
Being a member of the National Youth Parliament meant a lot to me. I am someone who is passionate about, I love politics. I love economic development. I am presently reading for a bachelor's degree in political science at the University of the West Indies. And being part of the Youth Parliament, being sworn in as the Youth Premier was extremely, well, I was happy. I was happy because at the end of the day, it is something that I put my name to and I've signed to say, yes, you're part of this and you're part of that decision-making process and that process where you can aid towards the development of this nation.
Sorry, my bad. So, St. Luc, I heard that you were nominated to be the Premier of the Youth Parliament in your absence. So how did it feel to be nominated by your fellow members to take on such a big responsibility to be the Premier of the Youth Parliament as well?
During the last stint, during 2022-2023, I was the deputy leader of the National Youth Parliament. On the day we were doing elections, I actually had duties, so I was unable to be at that meeting. And I got that call to ask me, hey, Sanlo, we want to nominate you as the Youth Premier. Is it something that you want to do? And I was happy that they put the faith in me to say, okay, yes, we want to nominate Sanlo to be the leader of the National Youth Parliament. So I'm eternally grateful to them and always tell them thank you for believing in me to lead them.
Fantastic. And then over to you, Kayla. Can you just tell us why you decided to join the National Youth Parliament and how it feels to have been sworn in as well?
Well, when I initially joined, it was more out of my love for writing and debating. And then actually being a part of it, I got to understand how impactful my role can be. And so I see it as something that can help with my debating, but something that can also make change for youth in Montserrat. And being sworn in, it really solidified that importance. And especially seeing the actual ministers that are in our parliament there, it showed that we had the support and we can make real change.
Fantastic. And I think it was great that the actual ministers took the time out of their day to attend the swearing-in ceremony. So that was really great. And Jacinta, you play a very important role in the Youth Parliament because you're the clerk. So tell us why you decided to become a member of the Youth Parliament and how it felt to be sworn in as the clerk as well.
Well, at first, I was informed about the Montserrat National Youth Parliament by my classmates at the Montserrat Community College. And as I went to a few meetings, I realized that I could be a role model to the youth of Montserrat, help them in addressing problems, finding solution, and addressing in those kind of things. But at first, when I did the sworn-in ceremony, I had felt a bit nervous because it was forecasted worldwide. So a bit of nervousness went over me. But as we went to the end, I realized that I did a good thing and I could be a great role model for the community of Montserrat.
Absolutely. And, you know, it is a lot of pressure to be on the global stage, especially at your ages as well. But I think it's good experience overall. And especially, you know, being able to speak and to represent the island. And I hope that you guys get traveling opportunities out of this as well. So over to you, Keanu, the very bold member of the opposition from the swearing-in ceremony. You definitely gave the Premier a run for his money. So tell us why it was so important for you to be a member of the Youth Parliament and, you know, how it felt that day that you were sworn in.
Well, I generally have an appreciation for youth development and general politics overall. As it relates to the actual swearing-in ceremony in itself, it felt ever so slightly prestigious, really. There was this overall feeling of responsibility, a feeling of excellence in a way, as if there was an expectation stamped onto your shoulders. Perhaps as if you were a part of the actual parliament, I would imagine. But most of all, it felt it felt prestigious for the very most part. And for those who watched the actual swearing-in ceremony, I'm sure you noticed the suit and tie. So it felt very official for me.
Yeah, absolutely. You looked the part and you definitely sounded the part on the day. I was very impressed with all of you and, you know, the tenacity that you had and also the confidence. So over to you, Michaela, last but certainly not least. Why did you decide to join the Youth Parliament? And you're also the Deputy Premier. So tell us a little bit about why you joined and how it felt on the day when you were being sworn in.
Yeah, I initially joined because I'm very passionate about youth involvement in Montserrat because as we know, the youth population is decreasing day by day. And I just wanted to make everybody know that there's a voice out there helping you. And it being my second swearing ceremony, it just excited me because I know that continuing this journey, it would be alongside the best individuals and colleagues that anybody could ever hope for.
Fantastic. So I see you're bigging up your colleagues there. That's great. So guys, if you're just tuning into the show now, you are tuned into In the Hot Seat with me, Vinay Abbas. And today I am here with the members of the Montserrat National Youth Parliament. And we're basically going to be discussing the future of politics in Montserrat, and I've given each of them a question to answer in advance, which I'm sure they're going to do a fantastic job at, because if you had the opportunity to watch the swearing-in ceremony, they're all extremely brilliant individuals, and I'm so proud that they've decided to sit down with me this afternoon. But before we go further in the conversation, I must give a shout out to my sponsors, Silcott and Villa. So give me a minute of your time, and then we'll jump right back into the conversation. So yes, guys, if you're just tuning in now, you are tuned into In the Hot Seat with Vinay Bass, and today I am with the members of the Montserrat National Youth Parliament. So like I said before, we went on a brief break there, is each member of the Youth Parliament was given a question to answer in advance. And so first up is the Premier of the Montserrat National Youth Parliament, is St. Luc LeBlanc. And as you guys would have seen, if you've been logged into 664 Connect Media, ZJB and everything else, we're actually I think the budget debates have finished, but this week was actually the budget debates here on the island. So as the Premier of the National Youth Parliament and as the sitting Premier of the current Parliament, it would have been your responsibility to be the head of finance. So in light of the recent budget, St. Luc LeBlanc, the announcement for the 2024-2025 financial year by the sitting Parliament, what specific initiatives would you recommend to foster economic opportunities specifically designed for the youth in Montserrat?
Thank you very much for that question. I must say two areas. One, in 2013, a national youth policy was drafted, and I believe that the government ought to go back to that policy and reshape it, review it, and take things from that can be implemented, because a national youth policy should aim to provide young people with the necessary skills and the values to meet our economic challenges and opportunities, which we have in Montserrat, right? Let it focus on self-reliance and governing of the youth movement. No, it doesn't matter if it's the Youth Parliament or any other youth movement on island, right? The policy should emphasize economic participation in education, in which Montserrat is rich of, culture, training, religion, and a way of living. Within that itself, there should be a movement where youth would be engaged in decision-making processes, right? When there are workshops, summits, and conferences on a governmental level, let our youth be part of that. Let our youth speak for the youth. And I don't want to talk about age, right? But I don't believe that a 40, 60, 70-year-old should be making decisions for me or for any other youth on island, right? Montserrat is basically a dot in the entire region. However, there are persons who can make that mark for Montserrat. Look at the number of guys who have joined clubs in the UK and across the region in sports. But the finances are not there to push them. They are there to push them. So we need to push more funding into our youth when representing Montserrat, and give them the time needed to represent Montserrat. So that's one of the things that I see that needs to be implemented for us to work together and get a brighter future for Montserrat in terms of youth movement.
Fantastic. And just to draw from your point there, you mentioned that it's important for the youth to be a part of the conversation, essentially, right? So how do you think the Youth Parliament can play a role in that? I'm not too sure exactly what the remit of the Youth Parliament is, and if there's any possibility for you guys to go out and work with the ministries that you represent and stuff like that. So is there a possibility for the Youth Parliament to be that voice for the youth in some of these conversations, Sevu?
Very much so. As you can see, when we introduced ourselves, everyone has a portfolio. Everyone has a ministry that they work with. Now, as I always tell them at meetings, it is our duty to work with those ministers, work with the directors or PS to when there are meetings and stuff, to be part of those discussions. And it is your responsibility, also our responsibility, to go back to the youth on island, go back to the youth community and say, hey guys, what is it that you guys need? What is it that you guys are looking for? And then we now become the voice of those persons on island when it comes to those meetings and those workshops. And also, it is our duty also to ensure that we report back to the young people, report back to the youth on island as to what is going on within those meetings, within those ministries, or on the youth level.
Absolutely, and it's definitely something that I encourage as well, because I don't want it to be a situation where the youth parliament is just seen as a body that's just sitting there and then you guys are not doing anything. I feel like it has to be something where we're seeing you guys almost like real politicians going out and canvassing the youth and making sure that you're getting their views and their perspectives on everything as it relates to the country. Because as Michaela alluded to, that there's a lot of brain drain that we're going to be discussing later on in the conversation, and children are literally leaving the moment that they get the opportunity to. So we need to really try and address this issue as soon as possible. So then I'll just move over to you, Kayla. Recently, we've had quite a controversial issue here on the island as it relates to the hair policy. So in your opinion, what is your opinion on the recently introduced hair policy in schools across the island, which specifies rules regarding the length and styles of hair that is acceptable for boys? Do you have a view on that, and would you be willing to share it with us?
Yes, I do. My view is that the rule as it stands is outdated. And I say that because we all know that hair is a way to express yourselves. And students are literally fighting for their rights to be able to wear their hair how they want in predominantly white communities. And how regressive is it that in Montserrat, a predominantly Black community, young boys still have to fight to wear their natural hair to school the way that they want? I think that there needs to be a real discussion and conversation with the policymakers, teachers, parents, and students to really get to the bottom of it and come to some sort of understanding or agreement, because there's no reason why a child should be taken out of school because of their hair.
Absolutely, and it draws on a human rights issue as well. But I think the other part of it is that most people were saying on social media, is that really the biggest issue in education right now across the island, first of all? And then second of all as well, within the hair policy, there were some rules there about Rastafarians. So if you can't have long hair, where do you go on island to register yourself formally as a Rastafarian? So there's like so many elements of the conversation that are not truly answered. Does anybody else want to chime in on that hair issue? Kiana, you look like you might want to say something.
Yeah, if I may, I agree with Kayla. We live in the 21st century right now. We live in the 21st century where where we follow the rules and laws and laws that were made in the 60s, I would say. You understand? So there needed to be an update of those laws, because if you keep your hair neat, I personally see has absolutely no issue with it. Right? It's just a matter of keeping your hair neat. That doesn't say, okay, you have long hair, you're not able to learn. So let's us get up to the times. Let's get up to the times.
And I think the other point as well is that surely a child of primary school age is not really in control of their hair. It's down to the parent. So are you going to penalize a child whose parent didn't comb their hair for school? And then you're going to block that child from attending school because maybe the parent didn't have any time, or sometimes, like, if you have natural hair, you could literally plait someone's natural hair yesterday and then tomorrow it doesn't look fresh, So I think it's really, like you've all said, reviewing these legacy legislations and rules and bringing them up to time with the modern world, because I really don't think that a child's hairstyle hinders them from learning. Does anybody else want to chime in? No? Okay, that's fine. So we'll move on to Jacinta. So Jacinta, as the clerk of Montserrat National Youth Parliament, why do you believe it's crucial to promote increased youth involvement in governance, decision-making, and community development efforts?
As the clerk, I believe it is crucial to promote increased youth involvement in these areas because it keeps the youth engaged in their country's development and also empowers them to invest in their future, along with the future sustainability of Montserrat. By involving the youth as well, the society is able to hear and address the young people, and the young people would want to come back home to Montserrat, for example, because a lot of youth are leaving at the first opportunity they get, and when they get the opportunity, they're not coming back to bring their knowledge and invest in Montserrat as they should, which is a bad thing. So I believe that bringing the youth involvement would bring back the young people to Montserrat and increase the youth rate, the youth population in Montserrat.
Do you think there's a point as well, touching on what St. Luke said? No offense to persons of a certain age, but especially as it relates to technology, I think that's especially where the youth can come in. Because even for myself, sometimes I like to think I'm up to the time, and then I will go and lead a class of primary school students and realize that they're all way ahead of me. So in some ways, in a lot of ways, it's very important to involve the youth in the conversation. Do you agree, Jacinta, that in terms of technology, that it's a major thing?
I believe that because in the 21st century, the new generation, they have adopted technology. I don't want to be biased, but to a way that overheads the older generation. So I believe that the younger generation should have a say in the development of a country, especially Montserrat.
Absolutely. And obviously, we all know that within the ages of 18 to 35, that's where we have the most innovators. And if we're losing young people within that age group, we have an aging population. So that would also be a reflection on our society as well. So up next, I have Keanu Kernan, who is the opposition leader and the shadow minister of finance and economic management within the Montserrat Youth Parliament. So my question to you, Keanu, is that given that the volcanic crisis occurred 29 years ago, and some politicians continue to cite it as a reason for the island's stagnation, what steps do you believe are necessary to propel the island towards positive growth?
Thank you, Ms. Bass, for the question. To be quite frank, if politicians are indeed hiding behind the volcanic crisis as an excuse for the lack of development, even after some 29 years, then honestly, that sounds like a sorry excuse for failure, if you ask me. The same can probably be said about the most recent pandemic. We cannot use these hurdles as excuses for the lack of forward progression. These are indeed hurdles, but at the same time, is about time we move forward. We move over and past these hurdles. This or we will become left behind by our neighboring territories and nations alike. As it relates to the necessary steps, firstly, I find we need to learn how to simply move on, as said before, move forward. Stop leaning on the hurdles and jump over them. Even if we stumble, get up and get a move on and stop with the excuses. As it relates to Montserrat in general, the retention of government is important. We know of the scenarios and the issues that surround the retention of government. But I find in retaining a government, in actually retaining a government for, let's say, two terms or 3 terms, we'll get more done. There are issues, as I've said, in retaining government. Perhaps we're not satisfied, let me just put it that way, with what the government is doing. And it is called for a new set to go in the next term. But the retention of government, I find, is very important. We have areas such as the retention of our population that is leaving the island in drastic amounts. The availability of jobs, school leavers, the access issue, which is a whole huge issue in itself, involving persons within government who can represent the youth, and not only the experienced individuals that we mostly tend to vote for. Well, at least if they are available at the time of the election, hopefully we'll have a wider scope in terms of voting. Ideas as it relates to innovation and progress, technology adaptation and utilization in schools. These are various areas that I think we need to focus on. I can even extend to the investment in the right kinds of infrastructure, innovation with systems and transformation that involves the ICT and technology, policies to foster investment, innovation, and transition from ancient norms and laws, even join back to the here issue that we have in schools today. We need to learn how to move forward from that as well. And finance and international cooperation. We are part of groups such as the OECS, we are part of CARICOM, and we need to learn to work together and network with our neighboring islands and parties.
Fantastic. Thank you so much there for a very detailed answer. I really want to touch on the point that you made about retention of government, because it's actually something that I agree with. One of the main reasons that I agree with it is because I feel like Montserrat is in a very unique situation. I think a lot of the times we try to keep up with the rest of the world, but our situation is very different. So we have to look at ourselves in isolation, for example, because I feel like you guys have probably witnessed it throughout your lifetime. The fact that every time a different government comes in, sometimes mainly based on ego, they wouldn't continue something that was already started by the previous government just because they want to feel like they did it their way. And I know that we can see that issue, especially with things like the hospital and the port. There is no excuse for us to be building a hospital 29 years later or a port 29 years later. These things are obvious. Does anybody else want to jump in on that point regarding retention? Because obviously there's pros and cons to it that Keanu alluded to as well. So, but does anybody else want to add anything there?
If I may just butt in, I've kind of tried to understand the way that the political system has been running in Montserrat, and from what I've seen and understood, that every 5 years every 5 years the population tend to switch political parties, right? And this is a bad thing, to be honest, because when one party comes in and gets some work done or doesn't do as much, then when you vote in another party, what's going to happen is that the first couple years the party comes in is to basically, for lack of better words, clean up the stuff that the other party did, leaving them for just about 2 years to try to push in projects and push in policies and push in stuff that will help the island. Then we will find ourselves in a position where enough is not done. Enough is not done. So I believe that some policies need to come into place where at least a party can serve 2 terms. 2 terms. When you spend your 2 terms, try to do as much as you can. If you can't, then you get out.
So you're from St. Vincent and the Grenadines originally, right? And I guess we can look at the 2 extremes, because Honorable Gonzalez has been in power for how many years now, right? So I guess that's a perfect example of where we draw the balance, because do you think that someone should also be the leader of a nation for that long, especially when we're thinking about things like, continue. Oh, sorry, Dominica. Not Dominica. No, Gonzalez is SVG, no? No, it's SVG. It's SVG. So yeah, so how do you feel about that, St. Luke? Because obviously, are you from Dominica? That's where I'm getting it wrong. Oh, you're from Dominica. Okay, ignore me. But anyway, Gonzalez is a perfect example of how someone has been in power for a very long time. And I think that we've seen that across the region as well. Even in Dominica, I think your premier has been in power for a very long time as well. So how do you feel about that? Is that also an extreme?
Yeah, I'm from Dominica. Roosevelt Skept has been there for 20 this year. 22 years as a politician and 20 years as a prime minister. I think it's extreme. It is extremely extreme. It is extreme. As that much, no party or political leader should be in power for that long, because you tend to find yourself losing that sense of not I was not saying knowledge, but the ideas that you have for the country. You end up losing ideas, and you start doing things on your own. Right? 20 years is way too much. Way too much.
Absolutely. So, moving over to you, Michaela. So your question was, hold on. Yes. So you are the hold on, let me find your question. You are the Deputy Premier and Minister overseeing Communication Works, Energy, Labour and IT. So given the rising prominence of technology and AI, how do you propose the government can expand access to IT skills for the youth and improve their employment prospects in the evolving technology sector?
Well, yeah, I have a couple of prospective plans. Number one, I believe that education lays the foundation for success. So, in order to expand access to IT skills for youth, there should be a focus on enhancing IT education in schools. That is, like, IT literacy can be integrated into the core curriculum from an early age. Yeah, I know MSS students have IT class, and I'm sure they offer it at the community college. But I feel like senior primary students could also learn a bit about IT. I mean, grade 5 and grade 6, because by incorporating stuff like coding, digital literacy, and computer science into our education system, it lays a foundation for their secondary education. And I also think after school clubs can be introduced, like coding clubs, because it would be a good way to complement classroom learning. Because establishing stuff like coding clubs in schools across the island for primary to college will provide students with hands-on experience in stuff like programming. And to be fair, I don't think all of it should be up to the school to educate the students. I think similar initiatives should be established in our own communities to further provide accessible avenues for our youth to hone their IT skills. This means investing in community centers, coding camps, and online platforms where young people can engage in hands-on learning experiences. By doing so, I really believe we can democratize access to IT education and foster a culture of innovation. And to be honest, we need to bridge the gap between education and employment, because what's the point of educating our students if they can't get a job later? So I propose the government introduces vocational training programs in IT fields. I know the government provides scholarship for bright students in many areas of studies, but not all students will pursue traditional academic paths. So investing in vocational education will cater to diverse interests and talents. I feel like a good example would be the government collaborating with local industry leaders who are in IT and local businesses to establish IT apprenticeships, sorry. I feel like this hands-on training and mentorship opportunities for young people interested in pursuing careers in IT. And I feel like apprentices would, working alongside seasoned professionals, will gain invaluable industry experiences while earning a wage. Because I know it's important, because you can't live off ideas, to be honest. And I feel like government can also launch virtual internship platforms, and that can help connect students with remote internship opportunities. Through these platforms, I know students will gain real life experiences in the IT related roles, and regardless of their geographic location, because I know Montserrat has a big diaspora, and those people overseas will also like to contribute to Montserrat. But I feel like by embracing remote work, not only can we break down barriers and open doors to the global talent pool, but we can also create pathways to success for aspiring IT professionals right here in Montserrat. And to further expand access to IT for our youth and enhance their employment prospects in our small island nation, I believe that our government can commit to fostering entrepreneurship in the technology sector. I strongly believe that empowering youth innovators, is essential for driving economic growth and creating sustainable employment opportunities. I believe the government can establish startup incubators with resources and mentorship programs tailored to these aspiring tech entrepreneurs, because it will provide guidance on business development, funding opportunities, and market research, enabling startups to flourish in our competitive landscapes. And I also believe we can offer tech accelerator grants to promising startups that demonstrate potential for growth and innovation. I believe this financial support and access to networks will help startups scale their operations and bring their products to market faster. And last but not least, I believe we must prioritize digital infrastructure and connectivity, because we need to ensure that no one is left behind in this digital revolution. Because I know everybody all of a sudden has access to Wi-Fi, but it's not everybody. And I believe investing in this broadspan expansion of mobile technology and public Wi-Fi hotspots in underserved areas, it will close the digital divide, and we will empower all citizens to participate in the digital economy and access online. I know that was really long because I'm very passionate about this, but to shorten it a bit and summarize, I just believe by investing in enhancing IT education in schools and communities, expanding vocational training programs, fostering entrepreneurship, and closing the digital divide, we're paving the way for youth's access to IT skills and a brighter future for youths in the technology sector. And I believe that together we can harness the power and of innovation to propel our small island nation into the digital age. Thank you for listening to that small little rant of mine.
No, it's absolutely fantastic. There were so many takeaways there, right? And I genuinely think that you should probably, if you have that written down, share it with the deputy premier who's over IT. One of the things that I wanted to draw your attention to is that during the recent budget announcement, they have decided to create a new ministry. So the Ministry of Communication and Digital Transformation, incorporating DITES and other IT-related services across the government of Montserrat to include cyber, regulatory, infrastructure, and solutions. First of all, Michaela, were you aware of that, and how do you feel about that decision to create a new ministry?
Yes, I was aware of it, and I 100% agree with that, because I believe when something is expanding as fast as IT, there needs to be a lot of focus on it. So it's a good idea.
Mm-hmm. And one of the other points I wanted to touch on, which is going to bring us nicely into the next part of our discussion, is the whole idea about brain drain. So one of the points that you made was the potential for remote working. So obviously I was responsible for launching the remote workers program almost in the other direction, because I was trying to invite persons from overseas to come to Montserrat and work remotely from here. But what you've highlighted there is that there's a great opportunity for young people to stay in Montserrat and work overseas. So they'll be bringing in, whether it's bigger salaries or whatever it may be, into the island, and they'll be spending their money locally. And obviously from a population perspective, we can develop our economy as well. So I think that that was a very valid point amongst all of the points that you made. So thank you very much for such a positive contribution. So guys, I really want to jump into the topic of brain drain, because I want to find out how you guys feel about it, because you are at the prime age when people leave the island. So starting with you, St. Luc de Blanc, basically maybe based on some of your friends or colleagues and stuff like that, why do you think young people are leaving Montserrat at such a rapid rate?
Persons are leaving because of one, opportunities. The opportunities that they get out there is way, I would say, way be here. Also family and friends influencing them to travel and migrate. Also, one extremely important point is taxes, which is extremely high in Montserrat. It is not a secret, taxes are high in Montserrat, right? So if they get that opportunity to go out there and work and probably maybe paying lower taxes, or taxes maybe matching their salaries and the cost of living, then they make the move, right? And I believe one way to kind of manage the amount of migration and brain drain happening on island is policy consideration. This is extremely important. You know, Montserrat needs to explore its policy and motivate persons to come back. And such ways that can happen is career development opportunities. And again, tax break. This is extremely important.
So you're an interesting one, Saint-Luc Leblanc, because obviously you've migrated here from Dominica, and you have been living here for a while. So one might ask, what attracted you to living here in Montserrat when so many youth are migrating? And obviously you've gone one step further, you're a member of the Youth Parliament. So there must be something that's still attractive about the island. What attracted you here, and why have you decided to stay for however long you've been here so far?
I was just about to state that I am someone who actually migrated to Montserrat 5 years ago for, again, opportunity, work, right? I got the opportunity to work in Montserrat, and to be honest, I love it. I actually love it. I have chosen to make here my home, and again, I have met my significant other in Montserrat, and that in itself kept me here and it's going to keep me here for some time, right? But again, the opportunity that I've gotten here in Montserrat, or I've gotten since I've been in Montserrat, I don't believe that I'd have gotten it back if I was back home. Not only am I part of the Youth Parliament, but since I've been part of the Youth Parliament, I've been part of a number of other organizations across the Caribbean and international organizations, right? So it comes right back to the opportunities that people get. Major factor in them.
Sorry, you froze there a little bit, Saint-Luc. Can you just repeat the last thing that you said about opportunity?
Oh, sorry. I was saying that the opportunities that people get across the Caribbean or across the world, that's a major factor in them moving to other islands.
And one of the things that I always say, for me specifically, coming from the UK, I've had some amazing experiences since I've been here in Montserrat as well. So I'm someone who's migrated back. And one of the things I always say to people is that in Montserrat, I can be a big fish in a small pond. And whereas if you're overseas, you're going to be a small fish in a big pond where you're competing with a lot of people for opportunities. So I think it's really about weighing up the pros and cons as well, because sometimes it's not necessarily that the grass is greener on the other side. Sometimes the grass is greener where you water it. So over to you, Kayla. Can you tell us what you think or why you think young people are choosing to leave the island?
So, like Saint-Luc and a lot of Montserratians would say, it is the lack of opportunity. But I don't think that it's opportunity itself, because, like Saint-Luc would have already said, he got an opportunity he wouldn't have been able to get back home. So the lack of opportunity lies in what it is that we want to do as young people. Montserrat is not as developed as other places, and we're a bit old-timey in the way that we do business and the types of business we do. Our economy is not diverse, and we also do not foster entrepreneurship. So if I want to work in AI, for example, if I want to work in that field, I have to leave, because no one in Montserrat
The
is
connection was a
going
little bit
to.
off there just now. So if you can just repeat what you said for me after AI. Hello? Kayla, can you hear me? I think Kayla's having some connectivity issues, guys. Can you hear me, Kayla? All right, so while Kayla sorts out her connection, I'll just move over to you, Jacinta. So Jacinta, can you tell us, Kayla, can you hear me? Kayla, Your connection's a little bit off. Okay, she's dropped out for a moment. So Jacinta, the same question to you. Why do you think so many youth are leaving the island at the moment?
Well, I believe for a certain type of opportunities because Montserrat is not as diverse as Kayla said. So people find better opportunities, for example, AI and those kind of ICT, those kind of opportunities elsewhere, and also for higher educational purposes. And because they get higher educational purposes and the opportunities are better than Montserrat, they're willing to stay and then they're not coming back to Montserrat to bring their ideas or what they learned from overseas to enhance the development of Montserrat.
So Kayla, you're on mute at the moment. Can you unmute your mic? I think she's still having some connectivity issues, guys. So over to you, Keanu. Can you just tell me, from your perspective, why do you think so many youth are leaving the island?
Well, first of all, I'm in agreement with my other colleagues. But besides the opportunities, even, I think it's the overall attraction. Like, people should feel the need to stay in Montserrat or at least come to Montserrat, come to live, come to develop in a way that it impacts you positively, to excel within an area. And I think that area in itself is just not very well evident in Montserrat. We have some issues that are, how should I put it? They are separate issues besides the opportunity based issues, even with job availability and educational improvement and development that we are facing here in Montserrat. And some of them would tend to collectively draw people away from the island. We look at areas I touched on a while ago, access, healthcare, um, typically just clearing things out of port, the port fees and these areas, they tend to be very exuberant on the people here. And I think collectively that draws people out as well. Just not having the level of leisure and the level of comfort being here, being satisfied within doing what you do best, I think that draws our skilled people away as well.
Thank you very much there, Keanu. And Michaela, do you want to add to that as well?
Yes, I'm just gonna kind of parrot what everybody has been saying because yes, there are lots of opportunities here, but as a young person, if you are so good at whatever you're doing, it will you will get better pay if you're in some big country. And as you said, being a big fish in a small pond, it is more lucrative to be a small fish in a big pond. So it just depends on where what you find important because some people do not live to work. They work because they want to finance all their leisure, as Keanu was talking about, which Montserrat does not have a lot of, to be fair.
One of the other points that I think is also important to add here is education. So, for example, access to education can be quite expensive. So if you're a parent and you need to send, and your child aspires to attend university, at least if you went to somewhere like the UK, you can take out, say, a student loan, for example, which you pay back when you start to work. So the burden isn't that heavy. So do you think that access to education and being able to finance your education is another reason why young people leave as well? I'll ask you, St. Luke LeBlanc, because I know that you wanted to add something there as well.
Yeah, financial education, that is a education on whole is a major aspect of it. If you're getting the opportunity to go to the UK and get student loan to start your education, right? And you're able to pay, sorry, after when you start working. That's a major plus and major advantage to you. Unlike myself, who have to be, as I'm going to school, as I'm working, I have to be paying you. You understand? So the onus now is better. It is more, there's more advantage to the person going to the UK and study and coming back. But as you just stated, person who are living and going to the UK and the US and may have to, who are basically small fish in the amount of that they are gaining during that area in their lives. When they come back, or if they choose to come back, now the onus now is on the government to motivate them to come and find markets for them for whatever skill that they have. Because if we look, for example, at Prime, the amount of products that we have that Montserrat are making during and advertising during Prime, it is crazy. But yet still we have nothing being exported. I believe that one of the things that they do is help the persons, help the manufacturers to gain market out there to sell the products.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. And Kayla, I just want to come back to you. I can't see you in I can't see your video, unfortunately. So if you can join back in, then I'll make sure you get the opportunity to speak. But Keanu, I know that you said you had another point to add as well.
Oh, sorry about that. I wanted to add to Michaela's point a bit. I find also if you've reached the top of the hill in Montserrat, you may not be necessarily the top of the hill in the UK. Saying that to say, there is a cap on the elevation prospect when you stay in Montserrat for certain things. Let's say, for example, you're into cybercrime or technology. If you're at the top of your game in Montserrat, you don't expect to go to the US or the UK and be at the top of the staircase there. So people tend to leave to further their experience, to further their scope and reach, to gain additional training and more experience within a field that they're in, because perhaps they've just reached the pinnacle of where they want to be here.
That is also a very valid point that you make there, because even, in terms of technology, even down to things like our banking system and stuff like that, we're way behind, maybe 20 years behind. So even if you were someone who's working in technology, we're just introducing apps here at the bank, for example, when apps have been around for a very long time. So I do appreciate all the points that you've all raised. But obviously, we don't want to focus on problems. So do you guys think that there are any solutions to this brain drain? And also the fact that you guys are still here, I hope that you're not planning to leave immediately. But what do you think that, because I know that in Montserrat we're very good at saying the government should do and this and that and the other, but I'm also someone that enjoys being an entrepreneur. So do you think that there's also an element where young people should start thinking outside the box themselves, especially with the access to technology and social media? And even the point that Michaela rose earlier about the fact that even though you're in Montserrat, physically in Montserrat, there's opportunities for you to gain work experience and work internationally on a remote basis. So Luke, quickly over to you before we end the conversation. What do you think are some of the solutions to this brain drain issue?
And as I just added, well, I probably put the cart before the horse because earlier on that I did state that the policy and consideration, one of the major things that should be done is tax breaks, and also allow persons to access the necessary funding for entrepreneurship, whether in agriculture, again, IT. I know of persons on Montserrat who trades and who make significant funds through trading. Right? This is an area that the IT department, communication department needs to look into, and
seems to be having
even
some
pushing entrepreneurship.
So
can you hear me now?
You cut out just now where you said that there's loads of people who are trading.
Yeah, I was saying that I personally know of persons on island who are making funds, significant funds through trading. And those are things that we need to push into the minds of our young people, because not everyone that's up for going out and working hard every day. Some person has that mind to trade. Some person has that entrepreneurial mind. So that at a secondary school level, we ought to be pushing that in the minds of our students, the importance of those areas vis-a-vis being a lawyer, a banker, a police officer, and those areas.
Mhm. And I think there's an interesting question as well, because it's something that I've been discussing recently. Soon, would we even need school? Because as technology goes, you're going to school, you're learning all of these unnecessary subjects. You already know what your vocation is, you know what you want to do. So do we need someone to really go and learn algebra and all of these different subjects that they're not likely to use in the workforce? And especially like you mentioned, all of the traditional roles like being a lawyer, being an accountant, and all of these things, you can just ask AI and it gives you an answer in 2 minutes, right? So it's now, I think, for the government, parents, everybody to start thinking outside the box, because even as millennials, when I speak to like my cousins and stuff like that in the UK, ain't nobody got time to be going and doing the hard 9 to 5. And I think millennials are a little bit more emotive as well. So they need to feel good in the work that they're doing, and they need to be passionate about the work that they're doing. So over to you, Michaela. Do you think that governments, and even Montserrat's government in particular, really needs to look at the type of young people that they're dealing with, even from an emotional perspective, because you guys don't think the same way that we do as well?
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, but school is very important because the purpose of school is just to make sure that students are in fact learning, because we all know there's a lot out there that allows students access to learning, but not everybody is going to be learning at home. Because, for example, during COVID times and and virtual class, it wasn't it, to be fair, everybody I know, because I was about to go sit CXC in a couple of years. They were upset about it because we were not learning as well as in the classroom. So yeah, I don't agree with you, sorry.
The point that I was making wasn't that to say to get rid of school, but it's something to consider. But my point of the question I was asking really was, do you think that they should also be thinking about the fact that young people are thinking about things differently in the workplace? So even like St. Luke was talking about investing and things like that, the opportunities that are available to young people are slightly different from those traditional roles that we had in the past. So it's not to say get rid of school, because there's value in school. But do you think that the government needs to now think about the generation that they're dealing with as well?
Yeah, sorry for the misinterpretation. As I think St. Luke brought up before, most of the policies in place have been from the 60s. So it would take a lot to ask the government to just unroot all those years and to just specifically cater to us, because it needs to be generalized, because there are people coming after and it's going to keep developing. So I believe we should try and develop with it instead of just thinking about the youth now. We need to also think about the youth for the future as well.
Fantastic. And Kayla, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Sorry
Okay,
about
so
it.
if you can just share your views on the brain drain issue again, and also your potential solution to the issue for me.
Yes, so I'm not sure what everyone else would have said, and if I'm repeating, sorry.
That's
But
absolutely fine.
I know you guys are speaking about education just now, and I think that a lot of people also leave because of the opportunity for to further their education, and that would be at the college and university level. But in education, a lot of people also leave at the secondary level because the school in Montserrat does not cater to their needs. The subject options and the way you're given your subjects, it's often not in line with a career path. It does not set you up for a proper career, because a lot of students, because they need to meet the 8 subject requirements, they find themselves doing subjects that aren't in line with their passions or subjects that wouldn't get them where they want to be. And because of that, they leave to go somewhere where they're able to get the education that they need to be who they want to be in the future.
So what would you suggest as a solution to some of the points that others would have mentioned around opportunities? Kiana raised a valid point of sometimes in Montserrat you reach your peak. So even if you're within a particular industry, you're almost capped at some level. So what would you suggest as a solution, Kayla?
Well, I think that the government needs to actually listen to youth. And I know that it's something that's been said over and over, and I don't want to say they pretend, but I feel like sometimes they listen and they don't actually take it into consideration what we're saying, because they already have this idea of how they want things to be. And we speak, we say what we want, they don't listen to us. And if you hear from youth, you hear what subjects they want to do, offer that to them, give them the opportunity for that. And at one point, I think someone was talking about going to England to be able to get student financing. In Montserrat, they give out, I don't want to give a number in case it's inaccurate, but a very small number of scholarships each year. And oftentimes you can't get the scholarship because you're not in a certain industry. I feel there needs to be more investment in the scholarship fund to be able to send more people off, to ensure that people are coming back when they study, and also that you have that level of intelligence across the board to be able to contribute to the Montserrat economy.
Thank you so much for your contribution there. Some very, very valid points. And I like the point that you made about if they were to invest in more scholarships, because sometimes I've seen the criteria. Like there was one scholarship even by, say, the Bank of Montserrat that I felt was very restrictive. You had to be a member of the board or be related to somebody on the board. So automatically so many people were locked out from that opportunity. But Jacinta, over to you. What do you think is a possible, or what are some of the possible solutions to the brain drain that we're experiencing here on the island? Quickly before we go.
Some possible opportunities could be investment in education and research. I don't mean just by the government, by people who are capable to invest in education and research. Because we know sometimes we say things, the government listen, but they don't actually portray what they heard or put it into consideration and actually do something about it. And I believe if we invest in education, there are more options. Youth would probably most likely stay here, and because there are more options for them to be able to become something that they want to be when they get older. And also promoting innovation and entrepreneurship. Give out like grants and to the young people, especially who have an idea that they're willing to invest in to make something large, to make the development of Montserrat something that could sustain the government itself, and also providing economic opportunities. Like they could make a diverse economy for the youth, and wages, competitive wages, which are they're willing to be able to say that I'm willing to stay and work because of how much wages they're able to make.
Thank you so much for your contribution there, Jacinta. Some very valid points. And Michaela, I know that you said you have another point to add.
Yes, thank you. Previously, St. Luke was saying that at Prime, you see so many entrepreneurs and local businesses. And I feel like the government can and should support them in exporting, because he also touched on that. Especially in one thing, I would like to say agriculture, because Montserrat is nothing but land. And you can't tell me that you can't plant one thing to export.
Another very valid point there again. So guys, before you go, thank you so much for your contribution. I hope someone from the government is listening. But more importantly, I think I didn't give Keanu the opportunity to tell me what his solution was. So before I go into that, Kayanu, what's some of the solutions that you think that we can apply to this drain?
Well, I'm in agreement with my other colleagues, but I think also we can touch on salaries, comparative salaries to um, nations' international standards. We tend to have in certain areas very lacking salaries, and it's not very encouraging. Um, I know there are processes involved as it pertains to salary increases and where cuts may have to be made, etc. But I do find that the increase or some sort of improvement in salaries would be very encouraging for people to stay and work.
That is also a very valid point because in places like the UK, salaries tend to increase with inflation. And I think that most of the salaries here on the island tend to stay the same consistently across the board. So the cost of living has increased, but your wage packet hasn't. And I have to admit, the cost of living here is extremely high. But I agree with all of the points that you've made. Some of the people watching have said some very valid points. And I'm so proud of all of you guys because I have sat with some future politicians that couldn't answer my questions or digging at them. But I think you guys have some very sound points and sound contribution, to all of the conversations that we're having here on the island. And I hope that you can use your platform in the youth parliament to really put some pressure on the government and the powers that be to get these points across because our population decline is an issue. And even when we speak about things like exportation and I think one of the issues that we're actually struggling with here on the island is not so much that we don't have jobs, it's actually having the people to fill those positions as well. So there's so many layers to this conversation. Obviously, the 2024 elections are coming up, guys. And obviously, as members of the youth parliament, you're very interested in, having a voice. And why do you think people should really take the opportunity to vote, St. Luc LeBlanc?
Yes. So one thing I always tell people, when a lot of persons I speak to, they say, "Why should I vote? I'm not interested in politics." But we need to understand that there's a difference between politics and party politism. It is not a politics is every policy that is put into place, the cost of living, fuel charge, customs, education, everything that is politics, not a particular political party. And we need to understand that voting is our fundamental act of civil participation, right? When you vote, you shape your future, you strengthen democracy, you empower each other as citizens, you address issues that you are facing, and you influence elections. So when you vote, you have a right to tell a political party or political member or a member of in cabinet that that is what you. And I implore persons to go to the meetings when the rally starts. Go to the meetings, ask questions, listen. Not because that you follow one political party. Go to all of them. Go to each and every one of them.
You keep freezing
Ask the
there.
question.
So you froze a little bit there after you said attend the rallies.
Yeah, I'm saying is that attend the rallies, not because that you are for one political party. Attend each and every one of them. Ask questions, listen to the plans that they have for you as citizens of the island, and then make your judgment based on that. But you need to vote.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for your contribution there. And Michaela, why do you think, as a member of the youth parliament, you're very passionate about everything that we've spoken about. So why should people and young people in particular vote in the general elections this year?
Honestly, I agree with everything St. Luke said, but listening to politicians, I don't think it's a good idea because the man lawyers are running a competition for best liars. But I feel like every vote does count, and I feel like as a collectivity, young voters have the potential to sway outcomes, even though we are the minority. We just need to try and shape history.
Fantastic. And then over to you, Kayla. Why do you think it's important for people to vote in this year's election, particularly the youth?
So I've been hearing a lot of politicians say that they want the youth involved, they want youth involvement, but I don't think that that can be done if we don't actually go out and let our voices be heard through our votes. And we can't just say go out and vote, because there's going to be a lot of young people who are influenced by their parents or friends on who to vote for. Before you go to vote, you need to take part in the entire process. That is, as St. Luke said, going to the rallies, following the social medias of the candidates, little things like that, and actually hear what they're saying and understand, and not only listen to that in a vacuum, but also educate yourself on what's going on the ground in Montserrat. Because a politician can have this grand idea, but because of the climate of Montserrat, it's impossible. And that in itself is just a false idea. And if you as a voter actually look into the landscape of Montserrat, what's going on, you would be able to tell when a politician is simply lying and giving false hope versus when they're actually giving something to Montserrat that is viable.
Very, very valid points there, Michaela. Kayla, sorry, thank you very much. And Jacinta, why should young people or everybody vote in the next election?
I would I'll say some of what Kayla said, like, and also I would say that majority of Montserrat should vote because it provides a sense of reputation. Voting allows individuals to have a say in choosing who will make the right decision for them on behalf of their government. And also the government will be able to get the adequate interest, and not only from a minority but majority, get the interest and the concern of majority of Montserrat, and be able to take into consideration how could they solve the issue, so that the minority would not give a proper representation of what the majority is thinking in terms of their concerns and their interests.
Fantastic contribution there, Jacinta. And last but not least, Keanu, why should people get out and vote this year?
Personally, I think, well, I'm in agreement with my colleagues, but Montserrat is not really the island. I always say Montserrat is the people that make up this nation. And for the future development of Montserrat in itself, it can be down to the difference of one vote that determines that future for us, that determines who's going to go in here and either throw the ball or drop it flat and it on the ground. So we need to get up, we all need to get up and go in as much as possible. Go and secure your vote, whoever you choose to vote for, and please vote right. But yes, we should all go and vote, be included within the electoral process, and ensure that, we put that best foot forward in terms of representation.
Thank you very much, Keanu, and thank you very much to all of you for joining me this evening. I know that we've gone over an hour, so I'm not going to keep you much longer. But how can people keep up with the Youth Parliament and all of the work that you guys are doing? Anybody want to take that?
All right, I'll just button for time purposes. We're on Facebook, Montserrat National Youth Parliament. We're also on Instagram. We have a number of projects that's coming up that we are not privy to disclose as yet, but rest assured that we will be back here to discuss those projects with an interview with you. We also will be doing some short interviews with each political if everyone who's running for office this election, just to see from a youth standpoint where they are good, what they have in store for the youth. So also look out for that. So again, look out for us on YouTube, on Facebook and Instagram, and meet any one of us, ask a question, and I assure you that you will get the answer that you need.
So thank you so much, Premier. And again, thank you very much to all of you for sitting down with me. I have Ann Thomas who says, very informative sharing from the youths. And you guys have some extremely, extremely, extremely valid points to contribute to the discussion here on the island. And as Luke said, please feel free to come back here on 664 and share those as well. If you have any flyers or anything for any rallies or anything that you guys are doing, please feel free to share them with me and I'll make sure that I put them on my platform. But I think that you guys are excellent. I wish you the best of luck with everything that you decide to do for the future. I hope that whatever you decide to do includes Montserrat in that conversation, because if we keep going overseas and watering someone's garden, we're going to be continuously having this issue of brain drain here on the island. So does anybody want to say any last words before they go, or should we just end it here? No? All right, guys. So thank you so much. Thank you very much to all of the listeners who have tuned in. I just want to say that this is going to be the last interview, because next week I'm going to be launching a new show called Women of the West Indies. I'm going to be doing that in collaboration with ZJB Radio and Radio Anguilla. And the whole point of the show is to really, one of the main reasons that I'm doing that show is because of the issue of brain drain, because I really want to highlight those individuals on the island who, not just on the island, but regionally, particularly females who are doing big things. So definitely look out on 664 Connect Media. If you're not following Women of the West Indies, you can follow the channels both on Facebook and Instagram. And from tomorrow, you'll be hearing more information about the guests. And the first person that will be interviewed on the show would actually be myself, because as a woman of the West Indies, I don't think many people actually know my story. So I felt it would be necessary to start off with me. But it's definitely going to be some valuable conversations. I have people like Miss World Caribbean, who's going to be on the show. I have the editor of Essence magazine, who's going to be on the show. So we're taking things up a notch, not just interviewing locals as I've been doing here on In the Hot Seat, which is a show that's very much dedicated to Montserrat. But I'm trying to spread my wings to the region now. So I'll be interviewing some fantastic ladies. And I'm also proud to say that I'll also be interviewing Rose Willock from Montserrat. So if you haven't heard Rose Willock's story, definitely tune in to Women of the West Indies. And again, to all of my regulars, I see you. Thank you so much for tuning in as usual. All it Ryan, I always see you. You're such a big supporter of 664 Connect. And I think that someone wants to say something here in the chat. So Keanu, if you can just go ahead before we end the conversation.
Yes, just a quick note. We have had some streams of previous debates. They have been uploaded to YouTube, so you can always feel free to check them out if you're interested within the Youth Parliament debates that we usually or regularly have every now and then.
So what's the name of the YouTube channel?
It is, I don't think it's on a personal channel for us, the Youth Parliament, but I think Live Islands would have streamed one or two. So feel free to have a look.
You could just go to the Montserrat Legislature and on the Montserrat National Youth Parliament. You will see them.
Yeah, I think they have that too. Yeah.
Okay, so what I'll do is I will go and add those links to the caption of this interview. But once again, guys, thank you so much for a very informative discussion. Again, Michaela, you had some very valid points. Make sure you're taking that to the Minister of MCWLE. And to all of you, just thank you so much for being bold enough to step up to the plate. I just want to say that this isn't all of the members of the Youth Parliament. I want to say a big shout out to Shanique, who's actually the speaker, and she wasn't able to attend because she wasn't feeling well. So I wish you that you feel better very soon, Shanique, and hopefully one day we'll have the opportunity to sit down with you. But again, if you guys have anything that you need to share, please feel free to contact me and I'll definitely use my platform to push it forward. But again, guys, thank you so much. Thank you to everybody who's tuned in, and I will see you guys next Sunday on Women of the West Indies. Take care, guys.